Well, once again, we have fascinating clues that have been left outside at Giga Texas. And today they give us hints about the future of Cybercab, Robotaxi in Austin. So we're going to look at those today. Thank you to Joe Tegtmeyer, huge shout out, doing his drone flyovers here. I'm not sure if the flyover was done yesterday morning or if it was done on Sunday, but either way, yesterday we got these screenshots from Joe's flyover of these incredible new castings that are in a shape we have never before seen. And so let's look at them. And we're going to start by checking out Luca Greco. He's a phenomenal resource on X for looking at castings. We're going to look at his analysis of what he sees. And so I'm going to start just by saying here on the left-hand side, the picture that you can see, that is a shot of these new castings. It looks to be, as far as I can tell, the top side of the casting. And according to Luca, he thinks this is most likely a casting for the Robotaxi or the Cybercab. And I tend to agree with him. And he says, as observed, the racks are labeled. If you can look closely there, there's RTTX050 on the rack here on the left side. And so that likely is short form for Robotaxi Texas. And it is consistent with Tesla's naming conventions for other models. Lucas says that there is lean design here. The casting is stripped down to the minimum and optimized for minimal material use. It omits the innermost flat wheel arch. So here in the back, if his assessment is correct, you can see the crash structure that extends backwards towards the rear bumper. On the Model Y casting, there's normally a wheel arch that is attached here that the wheel would ride up and down in. And we can actually switch over real briefly to this tab. You can see this is from Tesla's service page. This is a picture of the rear underbody casting. And if you can see my mouse here where the rear wheel well is, that casting has that big arch in it, which is where the wheel would be able to mount, and then it's going to travel up and down in there as the suspension goes up and down. And in the casting for the Cybercab, they have actually omitted that wheel well. So I'm not sure entirely why they have decided to do that. We're going to have to wait and hear some more explanations from Tesla engineering. Remember that the Cybercab is going to be produced with the entirely unboxed model. And so it could be that those rear wheel wells are going to be made of an entirely different material, or they're going to be attached to a different subassembly that will come together later, or any other number of reasons why they would have decided not to do this. But we can note that for at least this prototype of the Cybercab, which may not be the final design right now, they don't have those. And so he says instead of this 2mm thick casting wall, a thinner stamped steel sheet could be used instead, though this adds a manufacturing step and additional components. The alternative approach, the wheel arch could be integrated into an inner side panel or another component. And the smaller area of the castings, it does lower the clamping force required by the Giga Press. So the having a smaller casting means that the Giga Press doesn't have to push itself together as hard to keep the aluminum from squeezing out. The simpler shape is something that also makes this easier, that you might not have to have dies that come in from the side in this particular design. And so this makes it an easier casting to manufacture, at the beginning stage as well. So furthermore, he estimates that this is going to be a lighter casting. I would think that's obvious since you don't have that those wheel arches. And there is an impact on logistics that removing the wheel arches means that you can pack a lot more of these together. So what do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, there's 10 of these castings on a single rack. And and he's got it right there. Yeah, 10 castings per rack. And Previously, you would be able to fit maybe 5 or 4 for the Cybertruck, 5 for the Model Y in a rack, and storage space is somewhat limited. They're at Giga Texas right now, and so being able to store many more of these in a single rack is definitely helpful just from that perspective. We can see that this is definitely a distinct casting from the Model Y. It's entirely new and it differs from the rear underbody casting of the Model Y. It's unlikely to be an updated Model Y casting since the Model Y's recent refresh shows castings similar to previous versions per the repair manual. A new update so close to the one that just happened is beyond unlikely. So that's just Luca saying there's almost no way that this casting is for a Model Y instead of the Cybercab. And I would also tend to agree with that. And so now that we've gone through what is this casting, what's it likely for, what are some of the main differences, let's go back to some of Joe Tegtmeyer's original pictures, and we'll work through these. So these are the images that we saw that are screenshots from his drone flyover that are of what it was that he saw in Giga Texas. And here you can see, many racks of these castings. And one of the things that you can note is that there's a lot of stuff like sticking off of the top of these castings here. Then you have some more of the castings sitting on the ground. So here they're all stored in the racks. Here they are laying down on pallets on the ground so they can be picked up with a forklift. And in both cases, I think these castings here on the ground that are laid out are the exact same as the castings that are in these racks here. You can see the all of the runners. So where the aluminum is pushed into the die here, that's this section that is the rear part of the casting where it's going to go back to the back bumper, and that is still there. It hasn't been machined out yet. You also have where the aluminum exits the mold at the end to make sure that it's full. All of that is still attached, and so this is one of the castings pretty much like it would come right out of the casting machine, but this is not yet ready to be assembled into a vehicle. Then when we move forward to this next picture, here we see some of those castings that still have the extra aluminum that's left from where it comes into the mold and where it comes out of the mold here on this end. But in the racks on the left side, you can see that these have already been machined. All of that extra material has been removed where the aluminum goes into the mold, and here at the top where it comes out of the mold. And so these are racks of the post-processed castings next to these ones on the ground that are ready to go get machined. Here we have another shot of the pre-machined, post-processed racks or castings as well. And we'll move on to his next slide. Here's racks of the post one. I think this is one of the pictures from Luca's analysis is probably taken from one of these images here. So this is what the top of the casting would look like. And then you can see, more of the castings on the ground. So all the ones on the ground are the pre-machined versions. And then the only ones that have been completed, we see in the racks here in this picture, which would make sense. Once they carry those one by one into the shop to do all that machining, then they would probably put them on these racks and bring them back outside. And so they're not likely going to need to sit outside on the ground on a pallet as an individual piece after they have been machined and processed down. So that's what we see. Now let's zoom out. So what does all this mean? Well, remember, when Tesla actually developed the Cybertruck, we did see them make these castings early on. And it took a while between when they started manufacturing the castings, and we would get these drone videos from Joe of these new castings that were obviously for the Cybertruck. It took a little while between that time and when we began seeing release candidates being developed of the Cybertruck. And remember, a release candidate is a vehicle that is going to be made like the end product will be made. It's manufactured on the same lines, but the lines aren't up to speed. There might be a lot more hand work that's done in order to get them along in the manufacturing process, and those vehicles cannot be sold to the public because they haven't been certified by the certifying bodies. And I'm not entirely sure if that's just NHTSA or if there's more that's involved there. But so yeah, we did castings first, then we had release candidate vehicles, and then eventually they were able to not only debug the manufacturing process, but do all of the crash safety testing and certification process that was necessary to then be able to build those customer vehicles. And so right now we are at step 1 of that process here for what looks to be the Cybercab, where we have the castings. We haven't seen any release candidates out yet. They obviously have the whatever 20 some odd hand-built prototypes of the Cybercab that are running around there in Giga Texas and doing their testing and development. But those are even an earlier version of what we're going to be seeing here. So the question is, how many of these can they produce here in the near to medium term? Is it possible that they could actually have some of these Cybercabs participate in the rollout of the June robotaxi service launch? And I would say that is a possibility here, that we have there's quite a few, definitely well above, there's probably a couple hundred of these lower rear underbody Cybercab castings that have been completed, or at least maybe in the ballpark of 100 based on the number of racks that we've seen. And if they're continuing to pump these out, we could be in the next few weeks up to 1,000 of those castings. Now, can they then complete the rest of the process for the rest of the Cybercab vehicle? Like, is it possible to have 1,000 Cybercabs before June? I would say that that's probably a relatively low likelihood, because there's a lot that goes into debugging and troubleshooting the casting process. And so I would say the likelihood that this first batch of castings produces quality of castings that are good enough to where you're going to want to put them in vehicles is relatively low. You're probably just really dialing in those machines and trying to figure out all of the issues that you're going to run into in the future, get them solved ahead of time. So I don't think that the number of castings that we're seeing on the ground is a good proxy for how many robotaxi kind of release candidate or Cybercab release candidates we could see launched in June. But it does say that there's at least a possibility that we could see in the tens, maybe even up to 100 of these vehicles roll out in June, alongside of what will most likely be primarily Model 3s and Model Ys, assuming that the June launch goes well and to plan. And so anyways, that's the update for today. I think it's really fun that they are willing to not only share with us their plans publicly, but they put these outside. They know that Joe is going to find them. This is literally a nice Easter egg on Easter for the Tesla community. And speaking of which, happy Easter to everyone belatedly. And so that's the end of my thoughts today. Great to have an engineering type update to be able to share with you this week as we look at earnings today. And I'll look forward to catching you guys in the next one.